Hey, everybody, we have something really exciting for you. We have the Swimrun North Carolina course preview. This is an ÖTILLÖ Merit Race, so let's dive right in and get into that rock flute. Löw Tide Böyz, a Swimrun podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this is episode 94 of the show. This week, we have our course preview for Swimrun NC, a.k.a. Swimrun North Carolina. We're joined by Co-Race Director Herbert Krabel, three-time winner of the race, Marcus Barton, and Bronwen and Greg Dierksen of the Boston Wet Sox to share everything you need to know about this epic ÖTILLÖ Merit Race in beautiful Hanging Rock State Park, North Carolina.
So the story behind Swimrun North Carolina is pretty cool. So you'll have to check out interview episode 34 with co-race director Herbert Krabel to get the origin story of such a cool race. Swimrun NC is now in its fifth year and offers swimrunners quite a unique challenge in North Carolina. So we asked co-race director Herbert to come on the show and share why athletes should have this race on their bucket list like it is on the Löw Tide Böyz.
Yes.
Take it away, Herbert.
I'm Herbert Krabel. I'm one of three race directors for Swimrun North Carolina. My two partners are Jan Kriska and Jeff Beckelheimer, and they are actually the ones who came up with the idea. We love doing this event as volunteers because it allows us to be completely uncompromised, but also we are basically fueled by all the positive feedback we get from our athletes. Our race event is mostly known for beautiful waterfalls and a very challenging course, and the views are just stunning. One of the fun things we do for our teams is we have local elementary schools write personal notes to each team, and the athletes appreciate that seemingly the most. I mean, we buy lots of great swag for them, but they all appreciate the cards from the kids, and we are currently in preparation for the races that race in our 2021 event on November 7th. Usually our race is actually at the end of October, but the park, which is Hanging Rock State Park in North Carolina, pushed us back to the November date because it's the most popular state park in North Carolina, and they wanted us just out of their busy season. And hopefully we get to come back to the normal date and time in 2022. Another fun thing about our race is we pay cash to the top three finishers in each division and have trophies that go 4 deep because we know it stinks to be fourth. And so, we've all been fourth before and know what it's like to narrowly miss on the podium. And so we have fourth place trophies. This year we also have awards that are called Spirit Awards for 2 selected individuals in our race for a variety of reasons, and we look forward to passing those out on November 7th. And finally, we couldn't do all of this without the great support of all the volunteers that we have, and we love it, as it's basically they do the same thing as we do, and we look forward to have everyone on November 7th.
Well, I don't know about you, Chipper, but this race was already my bucket list, so it's not really changing anything. But
now we're putting in permanent. Permanent ink.
Yeah. So this race, as has been mentioned before, it happens at Hanging Rock State Park in North Carolina, and it's just 30-ish miles north of Winston-Salem. To travel there by airplane, the closest airport is in Greensboro, North Carolina, but there's also possibilities to fly into Charlotte and Raleigh, which are solid options. Lodging is a little tough close to the venue, so while there are campgrounds, if that's your style, Swimrun NC recommends that people stay in Winston-Salem, which, like I said, it's about 30-ish miles away, 45 minutes from where the race starts and finishes.
Yes, so on to the race itself. So the broad strokes are this course has 16 total miles, 16-ish, as with all swim runs.
Yeah.
16-ish miles
Thank you.
Total, with 14-ish of those running and 2 or so miles of swimming broken up into 11 runs and 9 swims, with a significant amount of elevation thrown in. You actually look on the logo of Swimrun NC, you see a giant mountain, and that's going to give you a little bit of clue to what the elevation profile is going to look like.
And that could also be your like heart rate.
that will probably be your heart rate chart as well.
So there's so you might be confused. It's like, wait, how can it be 11 runs and 9 swims? Like that doesn't make any sense. Well, as you'll hear, runs 5 and 6 are split up. So essentially, run 5, you're running up to Moore's Wall. That counts as run 5, and then running down counts as run 6. So that's how that happens.
Yes. Again, this is Swimrun, so
just go with it.
Be ready for anything.
It's fine. Just in case you were doing the math,
Just in case you're trying to figure it out. So also, this isn't your kind of beginner swimrun race, so it does submit into a lottery. Submit your finishing times for maybe a triathlon or an Ironman or something, but it does start and finish at a brewery. Yeah. So that's always a positive thing.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, I guess like you just said, Chipper, they really want this race to make sure people aren't biting off more they can chew because it is a real challenge. So the race directors vet all the applications for entry to make sure that you're, not just coming off the couch for one of these.
Yeah. Definitely no couch to Swimrun NC. Not recommended at all.
No, probably not to any, I would say. Yeah. But definitely not this one. So we asked Herbert to sort of give us his course preview, leg-by-leg breakdown. So we're just going to let him do that.
Throws in some great tips. Get those notepads out, folks. And like we always say, be sure to pull up the show notes on our website and the course map on swimrunnnc.com and go down with the leg-by-leg breakdown. We also wrote out leg-by-leg breakdowns on our site. It's also on Swimrun NC site. So listen and maybe use those 2 pieces of material as reference when you're hearing Herbert walk through the course. All right, Herbert, take it away.
We have an awesome course that is 16 miles of running and a little bit more than 2 miles of swimming. And in a perfect world, we would love to have more bodies of water in our race. But we have what we have, and this is what makes the swimrun sport very, very cool. So we have technical trail running, great waterfalls, and a lot of great things to see along the way. Basically, where we start is the Green Heron Ale House. It's just outside the Hanging Rock State Park, and the idea with that is this way we can actually have beers after the race because within the state park you cannot have alcoholic beverages. So this is as close as you can be to the state park without being in it. And this is where we start and this is where we finish. From the Green Heron Ale House, you basically run 0.4 of a mile on a wide gravel road, and this is typically where all the teams sort themselves and find where they belong in terms of order. This year, we may have to start teams in wave groups because of the COVID situation, but that should be not changing much because we assign the bibs based on who we think are the fastest teams. But back to the course. Basically, so you run 0.4 miles on a wide gravel road before you hit the first single track. And from there, it's basically the Indian Creek Trail that takes you to the first swim. And it's about, total distance to the first swim is about 4.5 miles. But you basically are going up and up and up. And you cross that Indian Creek 9 times on the way up. But before you get to the lake, which is about 3.5 miles in, you go through the Window Falls, and that's probably the place where the most iconic pictures from our race have come from. You first get into the Indian Creek itself, and you hike up through the Indian Creek until you get to the waterfall itself, and then you go through the lower falls, and then climb up higher, and then go for the upper section of the Window Falls. And we have lots of volunteers there, and we install ropes to make sure that athletes who feel less agile in terms of ascending a mountain or a cliff feel better about that. And on the upper section there is actually typically a way around it. It takes more time, but I would recommend for everyone to just go up. It's really manageable, and if you're not sure about how to tackle that section, you should let the team right behind you go ahead of you, and they can show you. And then you get to the lake, you basically swim. We reversed the course this year, and so there's the main aid station is there, and you go behind the dam, do a short swim, keep running further on the opposite side of the lake, and then you swim back about 500 meters to the main aid station, and then you do another loop like that, where you basically go past the aid station, go behind the dam, then go do a short swim, keep running again, and then swim back 500 meters. And then you actually start the main climb, which is Moore's Wall. That means you now run on the regular side, with the beach side of the lake, and you start a big lollipop that goes up to Moore's Wall. Moore's Wall is best known for the 642 steps to the very top that are all undulating, and they vary in height and depth, and thus it's really hard to get a perfect rhythm. But the recommendation here is, do not gas yourself on that climb, because you will need it in the second half of the race. I think one of the most common mistakes in our course is that people look at the course profile and go, oh yeah, half of the course goes up and the rest goes down, so I just need to survive the up and then I can cruise home. The second half is not easy, and so you need plenty of power for the second half. But as you're climbing up to Moore's Wall, there's actually a lot of climbing before you actually get to the 642 steps. And so it's after the campground. You basically run up to you climb up to a campground, and you run a short section on a road before you turn left onto the trail, and then continue up to Moore's Wall and the fire tower. And that's when the 642 steps start. It's great. You get some beautiful views on the top, and we have a photographer on the top who takes a picture of everybody. So we want you to do that, and that is kind of mandatory. It's actually an extra check that you actually were there and didn't turn around before you got to the very top. From there, you start about a 1 mile traverse, and that is a super difficult section. That is typically underestimated by most people, and it's basically rolling up and down with lots of big boulders, and it's tricky terrain. It's completely runnable, but to people who usually don't run off-road in difficult situations, that may be holding them back. And then the first mile of the descent is also fairly tricky, and then it starts opening up more and more and more, and gets faster and faster, and until you get back to the lake. And then you do 2 more loops in the lake. Similarly, you basically go behind the dam, short swim, short run, 500-meter swim, past the aid station again, short run, behind the dam, short swim, another little run, and 500-meter swim, and then you run from there to the next waterfall, which is about half a mile away, and that's called the Cascade Falls. And these Cascade Falls are really, really beautiful as well. And you climb down to below the lower falls, and you climb up from there to the upper falls, but you do not go up the upper falls. They are just in the background, and it's really quite memorable. And then from there, you run back up, and that section with the Cascade Falls is actually a lollipop. So this is late in the race, and you will see the teams a couple of minutes ahead of you as you're going down to the waterfall, and the teams chasing you who are a couple of minutes, 2 to 5 minutes behind you on the way up. As you're leaving the waterfall, you see them coming down. And then from there, you go back across the main parking lot and from the parking lot, you go back down on the Indian Creek Trail that in the early beginning you came up on. You run down the Indian Creek Trail, you cross. This time you do not go by the window fall. You kind of pass by the window falls. You go down steps, and be careful on those steps. They're very tricky. It's better to slow down than slip on those steps. So be careful. And then you cross the Indian Creek 9 times, and then you get to the split where you initially came in, and you turn left on the River Bluff Trail, and that's about another half a mile, 0.6 of a mile, to where you enter the Dan River. And there are volunteers at all those intersections to show you where to go. You jump in the river and you swim down river. If the water is high, it's super fast. If the water is low, I say typically you can swim at least 70% of it, and depending how tall you are or how short you are, maybe more. But the recommendation is you want to swim the whole thing, even if you're floating and side paddling. You don't want to run or walk in the river unless it's ankle deep, which it shouldn't be. But I would recommend the day before the race to go out and swim the river just to get a feeling for what it's like. That always helps. And teams who have seen the river always do better than those who haven't. Anyway, and then at the end of that 900-meter swim in the river, you come out at the Green Heron Ale House. So a set of steps that take you up, and from there it's 50 yards to the finish line. And beers and great food. I think this year we're going to have pizza and banana pudding and salad and some other cool stuff. So you guys should have a good time, and we look forward to see you.
Whew. Well,
Yeah.
that's something. That race seems like it's something.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely run heavy. I think you could consider this race a more traditional amphibious trail run. Lots of trail running, lots of technical trails. The swimming doesn't seem too complicated, other than the fact that you're swimming a couple times across the same lake. So you just kind of have to keep your wits about you. Luckily, there's a really key aid station near Hanging Rock Lake, so you'll have enough places to get oriented if you get disoriented. But yeah, how should people approach this race? It's the question we always ask ourselves. So we thought we would ask 2 of our favorite human beings.
True.
The best mixed swimrun team in American swimrun history. I'm just going to say that.
You're allowed to. That's true.
Oh, yeah? Okay,
Yeah.
good. So we asked Bronwen and Greg of the Boston Wet Sox to essentially share how they would approach this race and give their sort of tips, insider tips, if you will, on sort of how to tackle this race if you're really trying to race it.
Yes. So strap in. They're dropping some serious knowledge bombs.
Yep.
Hi, this is Bronwen and Greg Dierksen of the Boston Wet Sox, and we're here to talk a little strategy for Swimrun North Carolina, which is the last ÖTILLÖ Merit Race of the year in the United States.
Good pronunciation.
Thank you. I'm practicing.
So the strategy we'll focus on today is really geared towards those who want to earn ranking points for the ÖTILLÖ World Championships next September. But for those who are out there to just enjoy the race, take in some fall foliage, experience things, our recommendation is to focus on your nutrition, your hydration, your temperature, and your pace. And if you stay on top of those 4 things, you're going to have a great race. It's going to be awesome.
Also tether.
Tether is always a good idea.
Always.
Yeah. So what are you thinking about at the start?
So at the start, a lot of focus on whether you start cabbed up or cabbed down. It is going to depend on the temperature. The year we did the race, it was very humid and quite warm at the start, and only kind of got warmer from there. So we started cabbed down, which is a good choice. There also have been years where it's been quite chilly and rainy. And this race is happening a couple weeks after when it normally does in the year because of some of the restrictions, I think, at the park. So, I think it's kind of a mixed bag as to what it could be.
It's a pretty long run at the start, right?
And it's a very long run. That first run is 4.5 miles, which I think is the longest run we've done for the opening run of a swim run.
Yeah, right. Long start. So it's going to go off really fast. Those lead teams are going to be looking to get to clear space before you hit the Indian Creek because it gets pretty narrow there by the creek. But there's no need to go that fast at the start, right? They're going to go off like a cannon
Yeah, it's uncomfortably fast at the beginning. Don't worry if you can't stick with it. There are going to be opportunities to pass later if you're more of a climber and less of like a flatland sprinter.
Yeah.
Then you will go up. So as you're kind of near that creek, the path is pretty narrow. Don't stress. You will be able to pass people a little bit later. A recommendation, though, is to try and pass before the waterfall because the waterfall can get pretty backed up. And where's the waterfall?
It's about mile 3. So, yeah, make your passes before mile 3, before you get caught at that waterfall. But after you get up past that, 4.5 miles in, you hit Hanging Rock Lake. And there you're going to go through a series of pretty quick swims and runs. So you're going to want to stay mostly geared up when you go through those runs so that you're able to do those transitions quickly. And then move on to the Moore's Wall climb.
Yeah, so it's a climb. If you did the Odyssey race a couple weeks ago out at Orcas Island, it's a little similar to that. It's really up.
Yeah, a
lot of steep climbing and somewhat technical on the way up. So just keep in mind your nutrition. I do find that when you're really doing a lot of ascending or descending, you need a little more nutrition than you think you otherwise would.
Yeah. And so one thing to note is they have to hike in nutrition to the top of that climb. So before you kick off that Moore's Wall loop, you want to think about maybe taking on a little bit extra nutrition and hydration down around the lake because they ration out the hydration at the top of Moore's Wall. So, you're not going to be able to guzzle all of the water you want. So that's why you should take a little bit more towards the beginning of that run. So then the descent is super technical. So what would you do with the tether?
So this is one instance. We are huge proponents of the tether, but this is one instance where you might think about untethering. Technical descents are one reason to untether. So the reason being that the person who was following, if you're having trouble seeing the course, because the other person's feet in front of you are kind of blocking it, it's probably a good idea. Or if it's going to slack in certain instances and people are starting to trip over the tether, maybe consider doing it. I don't know what it's like to be the leading person.
Yeah, it can be hard to keep that tether at a good tension rather than pulling over your partner behind you. And you're gonna know when the swim is coming back up at the end, so you'll have plenty of time to cab back up and clip in. So you'll be okay there. And then you're going to do another round of quick swims and runs.
Same swims? Yep.
Yep, before you head back down to the Dan River. And so you're probably going to want to cab down at this point.
If it's warm.
Yeah. If it started off warm at the beginning, it's going to be hot by the time you're going down. And we made a pretty rookie mistake of keeping our suits up for this the year we did it, and we suffered for it.
We were hot and hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the time that if you have anything left in the tank and you see people in front of you, it's a long run, but you want to let it all out right here because this is really the last, raceable part of the course.
Yeah, there is a swim in the Dan River, but after that, but the swim in the Dan River is not really something you can kind of gun through. So if you have something left in the tank, take it out on this run because you're out to a nice little river float.
Yeah, that's right. The strategy for the river is really just don't run into a rock.
Did we decide on a strategy?
River float.
River float, yeah. So maybe try and use the rocks to your advantage and pull along if you can. But it's shallow and it's very rocky. So essentially just be careful.
And then you get to those stairs, blast up the stairs, and you're there. Have a beer at the Green Heron.
Are we going to talk about our goggle strategy?
Yeah. So Chris and Chipper, Brooke and Annie, I think they're fans of like the dark tinted goggles, but we have a hot take.
Yeah, we are not fans of the dark tinted goggles. We are all for the clear and or very lightly like blue or gray tinted goggles.
Yeah, and the reason is because it provides better contrast when you're looking at the ground. So you can put your goggles on, a little bit farther from the swim entrances, and you'll be able to see the rocks that you're running over as you're getting close to that swim entrance.
Yeah, and then also when you're coming out of the water, you can see the rocks, the branches, the debris. It's that much better when you're coming out. And honestly, do mirrored goggles help in the sun at all?
Debatable, but they do look cooler.
Sure.
So maybe give it a try, but either way, have a great race. It's going to be super fun, and good luck.
Yeah, have a great time.
Bronwen and Greg are straight up pros.
They're the best.
to be honest, I'm not mad about that goggle hot take either. I'm going to order myself some new goggles.
Oh, man, that's all it takes.
That's all it takes. Just the Wet Sox say it needs to be goggles, need to be different color. That's what I'm doing. So some great tips there for anyone that's looking to race and doing the best that you can there. If you're out there to have fun, go do your thing.
Yeah, just go have fun. Yeah.
Climb some waterfalls, do some rope climbing, swim up a river. This race has everything.
Yeah, and again, if you check out the show notes, we've added some of their tips into our annotated course leg by leg breakdown, so you can kind of get some of the spots there that seem super important. Now, we know the strategy for the race, Chipper. We should talk about how would you train for something like this?
How would you train up? So we asked 3-time race winner of Swimrun North Carolina, and he's also known as Mr. Löw Tide Boy 2020 in some circles, Marcus Barton, to share his thoughts on how to approach the unique features of Swimrun NC. So without further ado, we'll pass the mic over to Marcus for training for Swimrun North Carolina. Take it away, Marcus.
So the question that was asked was, are there any specific workouts that you'd recommend for getting prepared for Swimrun NC? And I'd have to say that off the top of my head, I don't think that there's any specific workouts per se, meaning hill repeats or anything like that. But there are a couple of things that I think you should definitely take into consideration when doing your workouts and structuring your workouts that you should keep in mind. First of all, there's only about 3,000 meters of swimming. So as long as you've been in the pool several times a week and you've been pretty consistent with your swimming, I think you'll be okay for the swimming aspect of the race. There's a little over 15 miles of running. And of those 15 miles, I'd say 99% of that's going to be on single track technical trail. So keep that in mind when you're doing your training and your trail running, that it's going to be single track trail. And that single track trail is going to be very, very technical. There's definitely some spots where it opens up into wide, nice, smooth trail. But for the most part, it's technical. There's lots of roots, lots of rocks. There is some off trail running where you're literally running up a creek, up waterfalls, hand over hand, on rocks, slippery rocks, climbing over trees and under trees, up that waterfall section. There's some great pictures on the website of us doing hand over hand climbing up rocks that's getting past those waterfalls. So you really need to take that kind of training and understand that you're going to need that ability. Then on top of that, once you've gotten through the lake several times and you start your ascent up Moore's Wall is 600 or so steps. And those steps are not evenly spaced. They're not evenly height. So it's hard to get into a rhythm. So having some of that climbing ability, stair repeats or whatever you'd like to have to get strong for that's definitely a must. But keep in mind that it's not going to be like a stair climber. It's at the gym where you can kind of get into this rhythm and this pace. The steps are deep and sometimes short, and sometimes they're tall and sometimes they're short. So you have to have that mindset when you're going to climb. Coming down Moore's Wall is probably the most technical aspect of running. I'm using air quotes, running, that you'll find on the course. And you have to be very, very confident. And that confidence comes from making sure that you have done technical running, because the more that you run technical, the more confident you're going to be in doing that type of running. And so that confidence not only comes in your own ability to be able to negotiate the obstacles, but also having confidence in your shoes. And I know that seems kind of odd, but it's kind of along the same lines of a NASCAR racer who knows the limitations of his tires. When is it going to grip and stick? And when are they going to slip? And you have to have that knowledge about the shoes that you're going to race in, especially if it's going to be slick conditions, because you're going to be bounding. If you're going to be running fast, you may bound and leap and lunge forward with your left foot to plant onto a wet, off-camber, angled, jagged rock. And you have to know with confidence if you're going to be able to stick that landing or not, if you like your teeth. So you want to be able to know not only the confidence in your own ability, but the confidence in your shoes. So race those technical type of conditions in your shoes. Jagged rocks, off-camber stuff. Make sure you have good, strong ankles for that type of running. And then down towards the bottom of Moore's Wall, there's a section where the trail drains along the water. When it rains, it drains along the trail. So it's created this creek bed type of trail where there's, 6-inch, anywhere from 3-inch to like 6-inch or 8-inch little smooth river rock kind of boulders that you have to be able to run through and feel confident with your ankles rolling a little bit as you're running through that. And then as you descend back down the waterfall section, it's just a lot of stairs and lots of jagged rock that you're descending there too. So again, do your technical trail running and do it a lot. Wear the shoes that you're going to race in so that you understand the limitations of those shoes and the ability of those shoes to be able to stick landings. And if you have the ability, because of the 4 years that I've done that race, it's been off and on, whether it's been wet on race day. So be confident in not only in dry conditions, but also in wet conditions. So hopefully that helps.
I thought those were some pretty solid tips that Marcus is giving, especially the tips about the stairs. Because I think everyone, if you've tried to get good at stairs or climbing, you've been on the Stairmaster and you can totally get into a rhythm, but these stairs aren't like that. So go find something a little bit wonky.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it sounds simple, but being able to run uphill and downhill on technical trails competently is not easy. As you mentioned, just even getting your ankles in shape for something like that is important. I also really loved him talking about the importance of having shoes that you can rely on and count on, because if you're slipping and sliding, that's just going to be not fun.
Yeah, so if you've been using some old trail runners that have worn down lugs or something, now might be the time, as you listen to this, place that new order for some new fresh foam.
Yeah, fresh foam.
So you can be good.
Not brought to you by New Balance. Yeah. So, Chipper, I think
we done it.
I think we did it. I think, we're really trying to get these to be as tight and as concise as possible. I think we've done that with this one. I think we hit a sweet spot where we're not going on and on about it. We think that this will prepare you for the race. You should take it seriously. This isn't an easy swim run, but gee whiz, it looks like a lot of fun.
It does. Gutted to miss out this year's season, but again, in permanent marker on the bucket list.
Permanent.
Sharpie. Swimrun NC. Have a good time, and see you out there.
And see you there.
Thank you for listening to the Löw Tide Böyz, a Swimrun podcast. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast and leave a review on iTunes if you're so inclined.
You can also sign up for a newsletter at lowtideboys.com. That's boys with a Z. And check out our meme page at The Löw Tide Böyz on Instagram. If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, drop us an email at lowtideboys@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Writing Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of our swimrun activities, hobbies, and other bullshit we do.
Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
And then a run.
And then another swim.
Then another run.
And then another swim.
And then run to the finish line. And just keep going until you're done.